G'day, I'm Dave Pellowe. I'm very proud to have Stuart Ballantyne as a good friend and somebody who I've met and talked to a few times on Pellowe Talk. He's chairman of Sea Transport, Australia's largest privately owned ship design company. And he has sold ships designs to over 47 countries. And he joins me today to talk about some of the problems and challenges that you have dealing with a global market. And I've got one special insight which may surprise you. Dr. Stuart Ballantyne, thank you for joining me.
Good morning, David. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent.
Now, I like the way you explain what it takes. So tell me, what does it take to sell ship designs to 47 countries in a global market?
You have to be prepared to travel to 70 countries at least 10 times. That's the persistence, and that you need to do that.
So it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of persistence.
A lot of persistence and a lot of dealing with different people of different cultures, different religions, different ethics. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. So in all of this diversity of global cultures and languages and philosophies and, as you said, ethical considerations, the way different people around the world think, which nation has given you the biggest challenge to overcome?
Well, disappointingly, it's actually Australia. That may be a surprise to you.
It's alarming to me.
It's alarming, yes. No, the trouble is that we've become obsessed with rules and regulations, and we've got too many bureaucrats for too small a population. But I'll give you an example of one serious problem that we had, which I didn't think it was a problem at the time, is that we were asked by the South Australian government to investigate putting a ferry across from Wallaroo to Lucky Bay. And we did the business plan, and we paid for that. And then we said, yes, we could do that. They said, well, would you actually do it for us, because we can't fund it? So we said, and we've done this before for lots of countries. We said, okay, sure, we'll do that on the basis that we can get security of tenure, and secondly, that you make sure that EPA don't jump all over us with their interpretation of some of the rules.
Now, to be fair, when you ask for let's say a short leash for the EPA, somebody could be tempted to think that you're an environmental vandal, a greedy capitalist who has no regard for the consequences of making a profit on the rest of the world. But your company has won how many designs altogether for international ship design?
We've won 10 awards, and 5 of those were for environmental.
Now, this is the point I want to make. Half of the awards you've won, 5 international awards for excellence in ship design, have been for environmental concern.
Where we've taken trucks off the road, we've reduced road accidents, road maintenance, and all that sort of stuff. So we've won 5 awards, and I'm very proud of that. I think it's terrific.
So I want to, I guess, clarify and paint the broad picture that you're not anti-environmental concern, but you're looking for balance in the picture. Anti-extremist.
Yes, that's right, that's correct. Well, in this occasion in South Australia, when the Premier, Michael Rann, and the Chief Minister for Transport was a guy called Pat Conlon, both of them agreed. So terrific, if we'll help you get established, and off we go. And I was sitting in the office of the CEO of the Transport Department, a guy called Rod Hook, during a lunchtime a couple of weeks later, and we're just sitting shooting the breeze, and he had a call coming in, and he just put it on speakerphone, and the conversation went like this. Hey, Hookie, he said, this is Alan Holmes. Alan Holmes apparently was the head of the EPA. He said, I believe that you're going to permit a ferry to go from Wallaroo to Lucky Bay. He said, yes, that's right. He said, well, I have to tell you, Hookie, that we've been at loggerheads with these shack owners, 120 shack owners, for 30 years.
What's a shack?
Oh, it's a little beach house.
So it's a tiny, basic accommodation for holidays?
Yes, it's just a holiday beachfront shack. for the people that live in the Eyre Peninsula. And there's a terrific beach there.
So not permanent accommodation, but holiday
accommodation.
Right.
So anyway, he said, but if you allow this ferry to happen, he said, this will validate the shacks, and we can't let that happen. So Rod Hook, to his credit, said, well, we think it's actually good for South Australia. So that was great.
On balance.
On the balance, yes. And, we started the service, but immediately the EPA came against us. They stopped us digging out the ferry terminal at Wallaroo because it was built on slag. The old boat launching was built of slag, and they claimed it was heritage slag. There was all sorts of things.
Why is the EPA concerned about heritage? I thought they were concerned about the environment.
Well, anyway, this is what they listed me for.
It seems like this senior bureaucrat, instead of facilitating the policies of elected people who are accountable to the public, they're taking it upon themselves to implement their own grand social vision without any democratic accountability.
Yes, well, I mean...
Isn't their job to promote development and industry? There seems to be, there's actually a tension, I think, going on here. Not a tension, but a conflict of interest, where on one hand you have, I guess, a typical left-of-centre policy or philosophy that is, let's do development projects in the state to build jobs, to build employment, to create a good economy. That's a very good typical left-of-centre philosophy. But then you've got this conflict with this other, maybe far left-of-centre thing, philosophy where they're determined to stop as much development as possible.
Yes, that's right. Well, this was going back to 2005, and I think Mr. Alan Holmes and his deputy, Mr. Townsend, are probably long retired since, but at the time they made it clear that they didn't want us there, but it was really they were targeting the shack owners, which is just bewildering. But the ferry went on to be a success. We won an award for taking all of these trucks off the road, and we reduced the CO2 emissions by 26,000 tons a year. So
very environmentally friendly.
Yes, terrific. You would think these people would applaud us, but no, it was against us all the time. Didn't like the way we wanted to dredge, didn't like this, didn't like what we're doing to the foreshore. We were changing the coastline. It just went on and on and on and on. And then when the ferry was a success, and we said, well, okay, people came, can we put a garage there? Can we put a little caravan park there? Can we put a shop there? We said, sure, but it was only a perpetual lease, so we had to freehold the land. So when we went back to freehold the land, the EPA says, well, no, we don't agree with this at all. You have to move right back because the sea level is going to be huge in 200 years, so you have to move back the ferry terminal, and all this sort of nonsense. And anyway, we got the freehold through, but right at the last minute, just to spite the shack owners, the piece of land that was between our freehold block and the shack owners, they declared a conservation zone so that we couldn't bring back the shack owners, even though we had agreed with the Franklin Harbour Council. So the level of spite by the EPA policy was just unbelievable. And that's a shame that this should happen in Australia and the South Australian economy. I mean, probably we were only one of many victims, but the thing I was trying to say, David, is that a state government, they have state developments. Every state has a state development, and then they have the EPA. But you don't get people into your shop, an investor into your shop, and say, well, listen, come into our shop, we'd like you to invest in here, and we'll help you. By the way, we've got a big Doberman over there called EPA that doesn't like developers, and we're going to set them on you. Governments should have state development or EPA, because there's no use wasting taxpayers' money by having both.
Yes.
So that came out to me very clearly in that South Australian episode. But
we've had, I guess, the observable benefit to economy and industry and jobs in fine profile in America with the advent of Donald Trump. And he's made huge slashes to the regulatory power and the policies around the EPA in America.
He certainly did, and so especially with the navigable waterways. And he rolled back 75%. The day he got in, or the week he was in, he rolled back 75% of the EPA rules. We actually need to do that in this country because I believe we're holding up $65 billion worth of projects. And at the moment, you know, the nation's on its knees.
Right,
and economically, we need some good news, and we need to remove the obstructions.
And you know what? The beautiful part of what you're suggesting, a significant slashing of the green regulation wielded by the EPA, this will cost the nation nothing. That's economically. Correct. There's no debt, but it will drive massive increase via development. Yes. That's now just allowed. Private self-funding without any dipping into my pocket or the viewer's pocket.
That is correct. And I'm a green practitioner. I have a sailboat, partly because I'm Scottish and Scotsmen we like stuff that's free, and that's why all my Jewish mates have got big noses, because the wind is free, and so I am a practicing greenie. The term makes me squirm, but you know, we've got awards, and most of the people that jump up and down and say, "Oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen," it never does happen.
Yeah.
In the case of the Gold Coast cruise terminal, the two Green parties that were going against that, I put a bet to them in front of the television, because I ran as an independent, because I wanted this cruise terminal to go ahead, because I believe that our kids, we're responsible to find our kids good jobs. Mm-hmm. And this cruise terminal would have created 5,000 permanent jobs. So anyway, the two Greens that were against me, I said, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I said, I will bet you $500,000. And I'll put it on the table, that if whatever you say is going to happen within 2 years, I'll pay you the $500,000. If you say the beach is going to be covered in sewage and blah, 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 all those things that you say, if that doesn't happen, you give me $500,000. It's a pretty fair bet, you know? It's a fair bet. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't be in it. Because what they do is they just project, again, fear, and the kids are going to be washed away with ships wash and propeller wash and this and that and the other. The funnel's going to throw out all sorts of fumes and everything else. Anyway, but that was. I think there's only one way.
They'll never put their money where their mouth is.
Well, that's it, and I think most Australians are actually very good environmental practitioners. Mm. If I went to your house, your house would be nice and tidy, inside and out. Same as mine, inside and out. We're all tidy people.
Depends if the kids have been picking up after themselves.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, same as my grandkids when they visit. Maybe not so tidy, but we're all clean. And right. We like clean. We don't like to see dirt. We don't like to see dirty creeks and stuff like that. But right. I think we've overreached.
It does horrify me when there's rubbish left on the ground by somebody else. Well, or when the kids don't put their rubbish in the bin. I'm like, come on.
But we've overreached with our rules and regulations. Yeah. Oh, the tree's gone this big, so you can't cut it down. You know, I think we've gone just too far. And I think Trump didn't cut out all of the cutback 75%. And I think we need to do the same, especially with people on the streets unemployed. We should be doing a lot of that.
And the worst predictions of the environmental extremists in the wake of Donald Trump putting the EPA back on the chain and in the kennel have not been realised.
That's correct.
The sky has not fallen.
That's right.
The national parks have not turned into nuclear waste dumps. Yeah. America's still beautiful, and most people still think for themselves and clean up after themselves.
Absolutely.
And the worst offenders are still being punished.
Yes, that's right.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Balance.
Balance. Thank you very much. I appreciate you bringing this up.
My pleasure, Stuart. Thank you for joining us again.
Cheers.